Welcome to part 1 of the Field Availability tutorial. Field availability is where club owners specify the time slots when games can be played on their fields, and also which of their teams can use those time slots for their home games. Completing your club's field availability is an essential step in the scheduling process. The information from field availability will be combined with the info from team availability to ultimately create a game schedule for the season that is as ideal as possible. Field availability is flexible and can accommodate various scenarios for allocating field use. However, many club owners will have a simple field situation which can be entered in field availability fairly quickly and easily. This video is part 1 of the tutorial where we will review how the field availability tool can be used with the most common and simple scenario. This scenario is when each field that you have is equally shared by a group of teams, or a field is simply used by only one team. Keep in mind that when using this simple method, you can still restrict teams to only use certain fields. In part 2, we will cover the other possible scenario, which is when a single field needs to be used by multiple different teams, but the time slots are not shared with equal priority. In other words, you need to have specific time slots carved out for certain teams. If that is your situation, please do not skip part 1, as it provides an important foundation. We will now begin part 1, where we will review how to set up fields that will be used by multiple teams, and each team has equal priority for using any of the field's available time slots. Again, this also covers the scenario when a field is simply used by only one team. To start, access the Field Availability tool from the website by going to My Club, then Home Fields, then Field Availability. Start by selecting a field to work with under My Home Fields. The fields that belong to your club should automatically appear. We'll start by selecting our field called Alliance Bank Stadium. Once a field is selected, you need to add a schedule to that field by clicking Add a Schedule. A schedule is where you specify the time slots when the field is available and is not available for games. It should be noted that for the simple scenario that we are covering here in part 1, you only need to create one schedule for each field. You need to enter a unique name for each and every schedule that you create, even for schedules that apply to different fields. The system will prevent you from ever reusing the same name. We will call our schedule ABS_Astros Braves because for our example, those are the teams that we want to allow to use Alliance Bank Stadium. Click Add Schedule after entering a name. Your new schedule appears in the drop-down menu. Click View Schedule, and you will be prompted to initialize. To initialize the schedule, first you enter the start date and end date for the season. Each schedule should always span the entire season. Then, select the time slots that are typically available for the field. This step is just a time-saving feature, as the selections you make here will pre-populate a calendar, which you can adjust as needed. So don't worry too much about what you choose here, as you will be able to make any necessary changes on the next step. If by any chance the possible time slots shown here are not correct, contact the help desk and do not proceed until the corrections have been made to your field's time slots. However, assuming that there are no problems, you just need to check the appropriate boxes and then click the Initialize button. Next, you are presented with a calendar for the entire season, with each time slot showing either yes to mean that the time slot is available, or no to mean that the time slot is not available. The slots are preset based on the typical availability you indicated on the previous step. You can simply click on any time slot to change it from yes to no or no to yes. Continue to make any necessary changes until the schedule is set up to correctly reflect the time slots that are available for games. When you are finished, click the Save button at the bottom of the page. Next, you need to add the appropriate teams that can use this field by clicking the Add a Team button. Teams that are in your club automatically appear. However, only teams that are of an age group that corresponds with the size of the field will be available in the list. Specify which teams can use the field by giving them primary priority status. Teams that cannot use the field should be set to none. Again, this part of the video shows the simple scenario where the field is equally shared by a group of teams. In this scenario, we can ignore the secondary priority option. That option will be explained in part 2. So let's say that the Astros and Braves can use the field, so we'll set them to primary. However, the Blue Jays and Orioles are set to none because they have a different field and they should not have any home games scheduled at Alliance Bank Stadium. If necessary, you can limit how many games a team can play on the field using the max games on this field option. Or you can leave it set to no max if you don't want to set any such limit. When you are finished, click Save My Teams. To review the schedule, we'll use the link on the page to go back to the field list, select our field and the schedule we just created, and click View Schedule. If you need to make any changes, you can. Otherwise, we can just verify that our time slot selections are correct and the correct teams are linked. If you have more than one field, you simply need to repeat the same process for each field. To review the process we just followed, you start by selecting the field. Then you add a schedule where you create a unique name for the schedule. Then initialize to specify the season start and end dates and typical game slots. Next, on the calendar, you specify the exact time slots that are and are not available for play. And finally, specify the teams that can use the field. Again, in this simple and common scenario, you will only need to add one schedule for each field. After you have done this for each of your fields, the final step is to click the E-Verify button to communicate to the league that you have made all of your final selections. Once you have E-Verified, you are finished with field availability. Thank you for watching this video. If necessary, you can continue to part 2, where we will cover how to accommodate a field that will be used by multiple teams, but specific time slots need to be reserved for certain teams.